What's brighter and more colorful than a Porsche in the summertime? Oh right, those people who are subscribers to the Audrain Museum Network. If you're not one, press that button now, tell your friends, do it! Hi, and welcome to the Audrain Automobile Museum and our exhibition Rennsport, Porsche's Transition from Race to Road, brought to you by Porsche of Warwick. And today, once again, my friend Sean is here to take us on a journey through Porsches listening to their clientele. And the best example of that in recent times is the car that we are standing on either side of, a really terrific car which in fact carries the name RS America.
They named it appropriately because can you guess the group that was upset?
The Dutch.
So the RS came out in Europe, and of course us Americans were a little peeved, a little upset that we didn't have the option to purchase the car because it was only for the European audience at that time. So what was Porsche's answer? The RS America. Very limited production. They made about 700 or so units for the American market, and today it is one of the most, I would say, you know, from the 964 era, it is definitely one of the more valuable models for the car.
And the reason for that value is the fact that unlike a lot of manufacturers who introduced Europe-only models and then said, well, we need to do something for America, they did a Europe look car for America. But the RS America actually has the goods. This is indeed a lighter weight car. You and I have both driven this car, and the difference between this and a standard car of its time is dramatic.
Yeah, it's astonishing.
You really do feel the difference in weight. And for me, also, you know, the deprivations that the manufacturers place on us for a lighter weight car sometimes, I think in my case, go a little too far. This still feels like a good, solid GT car. It doesn't feel like you're missing things.
Correct. And it still has that ability where you, in my opinion, this is a car you could go to the grocery store in.
Absolutely. Unlike the car that we saw in an early video, the RSR, which you would not go to the grocery store, this you can go to the grocery store and frankly, for road driving, have 80% of the experience of that RSR.
I would completely agree with that, yes.
The performance of these cars is very surprising, especially for people who think of today's car and their performance.
Yeah, you know, when people look at numbers, you see about 250 horsepower, you think that can't be, you know, that's
Is that a Toyota Corolla?
But again, it's the connection you have with the car, which a lot of these cars, of course, you really feel that connection with, that we keep going back to. And like you said, the lightweight aspect of it, the look of the car, and something that Porsche does so well, even though it is a very, you know, valuable limited production car, for the average person, they wouldn't know what they're looking at. They just see a Porsche 911, and that's sort of a theme that we see throughout this exhibit as well. The 911R is a great example of that. You know, you can take this to the grocery store and not have to worry about parking all the way in the back of the parking lot. So something I really appreciate about it as well.
I do love, as obviously people can see who are watching this and see that I like things which are very subtle, such as my trousers.
Yeah, your pants, yeah.
And my tie.
Correct.
But in cars, I do like the understated. And this is certainly, as you just mentioned, an understated car, sort of a Q ship, as it were. You know, if you don't read the badges, you don't know what has just passed you.
Yeah.
And that is also very much for me the appeal of the next car we're going to talk about here, which you see in the background, the 911R.
One of our, you and I, favorite modern Porsches.
Absolutely. I have to say it was my absolute favorite modern 911 until I drove the Dakar. But that's not in this exhibition and totally different story. But the 911R also is a tribute to the original 911R of 1969, which was an amazing race car for the road again.
Only made about 20 of those, I believe.
Exactly. And they are incredibly desirable, those which were not comprehensively crashed in period. And again, Porsche did not do the cynical thing of saying, well, let's just sort of slap this iconic badge on the car. They actually made a car that is very, very special and very different from the other 911s of its time.
And you're going to see in the current market, they've, you know, the value reflects that.
Yes, indeed. The market has looked very favorably on those cars, and hopefully on those examples which have actually been driven, because it would be absolutely tragic to own one of those cars simply as an asset and not actually experience it on the road, because it is such a remarkable car. And again, it does what it does in a very quiet way, which I absolutely love. You know, with all the 911s, again, personal preference, if I have a choice between the touring version without the giant wing, I'll always take it. And this car, to me, gives off so much of the essence of the original 901, 911. It's just really simple. They even have the wonderful check interior in it. I mean, it just brings you right back to that era of lightness, nimbleness, directness.
So when this car, the 911R, came out, a lot of enthusiasts thought, and Porsche kind of alluded to this being the last greatest car, the last what they could do with the current regulations, whether it's smog, safety. Even at this time, you probably recall the 6-speed manual transmission was it was a questionable
exactly
if Porsche was going to continue it, because at that time, every brand was going towards the PDK or the dual clutch transmission simply for track times and trying to make the cars as fast as possible.
Exactly, to get the numbers on the page.
But this car, it didn't matter, because it was all about the driving experience. And you could even argue today that this car was the beginning of the end for the ultimate fastest car that you could produce, and really going towards the driving experience, because you're seeing now, of course, Porsche, other brands, track times don't necessarily matter. High performance doesn't necessarily matter. It's about the connectivity. And what Porsche does so well is, they have the generation of car, this of course being a 991. This is the ultimate, this is the best. And like we said, 2 years later, what happens?
Well, Porsche is terrific at really extending the performance envelope of a particular model and making collectors and drivers and enthusiasts want to get that latest, the fastest, the lightest. And then 18 months later, there's a new one. A new king has been crowned.
And you need to have it.
Exactly. And that driving desirability is something that obviously was invented way back in the 1920s with General Motors and the design changes. And Porsche does it though in a way that they usually put some sort of a feature that really makes it a little different than the other car. And we see this in the sort of successor, as it were, today to the 911R, the ST. Absolutely,
which is the Porsche right now. And it is understandably so, but having had a chance to drive it, you've driven it, it really, for the modern generation, elevates the 911, the current 911, tenfold in my opinion. And just like the 911R, the values right off the bat have skyrocketed.
Well, it's very interesting too, because I have a very, very strong opinion about cars as an asset class. To me, if a car is interesting, then people of the current era and in future eras will appreciate the car, and the car will be more valuable. It's also very interesting that these cars which are built for driving, I think they're best appreciated by people who actually drive them. Mm-hmm. And it is the idea of what is lasting in their configuration, what made them special when they were new. The reason why today we still prize the 2.7 Carrera RS is because of its what it meant at the time and its driving dynamics today. The RS America, the very same. In the future, the 911R is still a fairly newish car, but I think that looking at the other things in the marketplace and what might be available, it too will be something of lasting interest. And to me, the ST, again, carries through that whole idea of a beautiful, elegant shape with great performance and just that tactile connectivity that is usable 80% of the time when you drive the car.
What's so interesting to me now too with modern Porsches is when you're looking at values is the specifications of cars. Mm-hmm. I think what you're seeing now more than ever is the car has to be a paint to sample, it has to have certain box checked. And it's really interesting to see where that's going to go in the future. But the ST, what really stands out to me more so than the 911R, both two of my favorite Porsches. 911 ST is one of my favorite cars. Is that the ST seems to me it was almost like a skunk work project, something you don't see with modern brands anymore. And the fact that Porsche was, you know, what can we do to make the ultimate car now before we can't? And I think this is what that was. You know, they did a lot of little details. They used the old door handles. They made it very subtle, like you said, similar to the 911R. But true to the heritage, offering the heritage package, which they're doing a lot now with the modern cars, the beautiful interior, making it very comfortable, but not compromising on performance. The short shift gear ratio, this has the GT transmission. But when you look at it, you know exactly it is something special with the GT3 RS, you know, fender flares, but it's just on that in between, you know, too much, too little, and that's to me what really makes this car stand out. And ultimately, we talked about how you know, Porsche always comes out with another model, but it would be really hard to follow this up, in my opinion. But well, I'm sure they have something in stock.
Of course they do. You mentioned something which I think is certainly worth pursuing. That is personalization, and that is something that Porsche has really gotten into, as a number of other manufacturers have as well. And the idea that you have to be very careful with your personalization, because if you're looking at a car primarily as an asset, then you have to make sure that you don't make it so incredibly personal to you that somebody else might not appreciate it, and also something that doesn't really suit the car. I mean, one of the things I think that we can say quite proudly here at the Audrain is that all of the Porsches in the Audrain collection, the modern ones that have been very, very carefully custom ordered, have been very interesting in their individual spec, but also respect what the car is, what the function of the car is, and what the design of the car shows off. The ST is painted this remarkable color, but it's also a color that is a GT car color. It's not a race car color, because the ST is not a race car. And it fits into that wonderful category of sort of gentleman's express. And so you've got all of the parts necessary so that you can have a really involving high-speed driving experience. You could take it to the track if you wanted to and have a great time. It's not a track car, but it is one of those cars that if you take it to dinner, it's as at home, you know, going to a fancy dinner as it is to the track. And I think exactly that really makes a Porsche a Porsche.
Yes, that's exactly right. And the minimalistic features carry through on this car. If you were to jump into the 992 GT3 RS, the steering wheel has more knobs than a Formula One car. This car has no knob. There's no, you know, very few ways to customize the driving ability, you know, which is, again, going back to that rawness, going back to jump in, drive, let's go.
Well, that's what, for me, a great performance Porsche should be all about. And we'll also see in this show, however, Porsches that are not only designed for the racetrack, but can only be driven on the racetrack. So that's our next feature. So thanks a lot, Sean.
My pleasure.
We hope to see you here in the gallery on Bellevue Avenue or on the Bloomberg Connect website for this exhibition, Rennsport, Porsche's Transition from Race to Road. Thanks for joining us.